Good evening, everybody.
Evening, Mayor.
At 6:45, I'd like to call the Board of Control meeting to order. Again, good evening, everybody.
Here.
Director Costello, if you could please call the roll.
Councilmember William Minnick,
Here.
Finance Director Greg Single,
Here.
Director of Law Tim Riley,
Here.
Mayor Patrick Cooney.
Here.
I am here too.
Thank you. I'd take a motion to approve the minutes that were distributed with the agenda from our meeting on November 2nd, 2020.
So made.
moved, Mayor.
Okay, first by Director Single, second by Councilman Minnick. All those in favor?
Aye.
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 Any nays? Okay, the minutes have been approved. We'll move to our agenda. First item on the agenda, Baldwin Sowers purchase for signal controller. Director Costello, if you could explain that for us, please.
Thank you. The total cost being quoted for this new master controller is $3,185. However, we have come to the Board of Control about some other controller equipment to the Board of Control. Previous encumbrances total little under $10,000. So we wanted to come in and get approval for this purchase. It's for the master controller that operates the intersections on West 220th Street at Mastic and Macbeth. And so it's important for our sign and signal department to have this equipment on hand. And hopefully to keep our roads and our drivers and pedestrians safe.
Is this a replacement, or is this just in the event there's an issue there?
This is, I believe that we've used the one on our shelf for replacing this. And so we'll purchase this to have on the shelf, Your Honor. But that's because when they go, there's no warning. There's no system warning to alert the sign and signal personnel that something's going. So he needs to have one on the shelf to replace on an emergency basis. So that master controller at 220 Macbeth and Mastic has already been replaced. So this will be sitting on the shelf, but for use on an emergency basis.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Are there any other questions or comments? If not, I'd take a motion to approve this item.
So moved, Mayor.
Thank you, Councilman Minnick. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, Director Single. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the item's been approved. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is DNS Door Improvement Project, which is a CARES Act reimbursement project. Director Costello, if you could explain this one to us as well.
Thank you. I just want to clarify that the contractor for this CARES funded project, this door improvement project, is DNS. It's there was a typo on the agenda. And this contractor has previous approval for a contract to improve doors, various buildings, City Hall, Gemini Center, and the main cabin. And that approval from the Board of Control was granted on October 19th regarding a publicly bid project totaling $107,000, $107,606 to be exact. Council passed an ordinance 2037 approving projects expenses not to exceed $120,000. A change order has recently been submitted to us to suggest replacing the fob system for City Hall with a card swipe system. And we discussed this at great length with our technical advisor on the project, Construction Resources, Inc. And some of the improvements that the system offers was you don't have to find the button that corresponds to the door on a fob. It's just one card that you swipe. So it offers an ease of access to everybody using it. They're easier to program. The supporting software documents are much easier to operate. And if we stayed with the fob system, we'd have to reprogram each fob at the door and access a control panel that would be hidden above the drop ceiling. And it just wasn't tenable for, the future operation. So this new card swipe system would cost an additional $2,850 that we would pay to DNS to upgrade this. So that's our request today, is to accommodate this change order for this new type of equipment, again, to be paid from the CARES Act funding. Are there any questions?
And again, this was at the recommendation of one of the contractors or subcontractors for the project. Is that correct?
That's right. Our technical advisor, who's also being paid from CARES Act, had researched this product with as proposed by DNS, and yes, has recommended this would be our best path to follow.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions, comments? If not, I would take a motion to approve this item.
So made.
Thank you, Director. Is there a second?
Second.
Thank you, Councilman. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed? Okay, the item's been approved. Director, are there any other items? I just see the two on the agenda. Is that it?
That's it.
Okay. I'd take a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
You're too slow, Tim. It's always Councilman Minnick. So that was Councilman Minnick and then Director Riley. So all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Okay. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you.
Hi, all.
Hey, Mike.
How's everyone doing?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Hi, Rich.
Evening.
How you doing, Mike?
Hi, Bill. How you doing?
Doing fine, thank you.
Good evening, everybody.
Mayor,
Hi, Mary.
Hi, Mike. How are you?
Good. How you doing?
Good, thank you.
Everybody's here.
7 o'clock, okay, Mike?
Okay, Bill.
Okay. I would like to call the Environment, Public Works, Planning, Zoning, and Development Committee for Monday, November 23rd, 2020, 7 o'clock to order. 2 ordinances to be discussed this evening. I welcome the mayor and Director Costello to participate in the 2 ordinances. First ordinance is 2048, an ordinance authorizing McKay Engineering and Surveying Company to prepare plans and specifications and provide construction administration and procurement services for the relocating and reconstruction of a restroom at Vane Park and declaring an emergency. The city was fortunate to receive a grant of $89,808.25 from the Ohio Department of Natural Resources, Land and Conservation Fund. The total project is $179,616.50. And McKay Engineering and Surveying Company will be under contract for $18,000 to prepare the plans. Director Costello, you have anything additional to add?
This is going to be an exciting project. We're looking forward to demolishing the existing structure, which we think is original to the site from the early 1950s, mid 1950s.
Yes.
It was closed in 2018 due to not only structural issues, but plumbing issues and other issues that would require digging up the floor of the existing structure. So in order to save money, the community planner was successful at acquiring a grant as described by Councilmember Minnick. And this unit is a very attractive unit, but we are able to move it a little closer to the pavilion, which we feel is an important aspect of this project. People who rent the pavilion may like to have a little better access to this structure. So there are some costs that are included in that estimate that Councilmember Minnick mentioned that include the demolition and relocating some of these utilities. So thank you very much.
Any additional comments?
Mr. Chairman, yes, if I may.
Mayor, sure.
Thank you. I'd like to echo what Director Costello said about how it's a very exciting project, and extend our gratitude to the ODNR and Community Planner Jordan in securing these funds. One of the things that I've been talking with Director Single, we would ask of council is if this could be passed after January 1st, just so that there wouldn't be any necessary changes to the appropriations, that you're going to be talking about later today. So we just ask that it be held to be passed. I believe our first meeting is January 4th. So I think that's the date, but whatever that is in early January. And it shouldn't. We've had an opportunity to talk about that here with Director Costello and Community Planner Jordan. It's not going to slow the project down.
That's fine, Mayor.
Thank you.
Mike, you have any problem with after the first of the year?
No, that's fine.
Okay,
So you want to just disregard that emergency letter that was sent with that one, or?
Yes, please. Thank you.
so noted, Mayor.
Thank you.
Any additional comments pertaining to ordinance 2048? Okay, move to place this on second and subsequent third passage after January 1 of 2021. Brian,
Yes.
myself, yes. Maureen? Maureen? Sarah?
Yes.
Bridget?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Thank you. Ordinance 2049, an ordinance authorizing McKay Engineering and Surveying Company to prepare plans and specifications and provide construction administration and bidding services for water main replacement and paving resurfacing on Cromwell Avenue, Parkwood Avenue, and Bain Park Drive, and declaring emergency. The cost of these said services are $144,000. And of course, Cleveland, City of Cleveland, Division of Water will reimburse the City of Fairview Park upon completion of the project. Do I have any questions pertaining to this here? Director Costello, you want to say a few words?
Thank you very much. We're excited about these projects. Looking forward to making these improvements. City has been very successful in leveraging these funds to provide improvements to the street. So we'll follow up these projects with paving from curb to curb.
Thank you.
And I'm not sure, but if I could ask if this also is an ordinance that we would ask for passage in the January 4th meeting.
What is
Yes,
the wishes? Mayor?
Mr. Chairman, yes, it is. Yes, similar to the Bain Park legislation, we would ask that it be passed in early January. And again, it's not going to slow the project down. And I think if there was, I believe there was a memo sent on that one, and that could be withdrawn as well. And appreciate again the Cleveland Division of Water, their support of these projects. Again, anytime we get a chance to invest in our infrastructure, water mains and roads, it's a good result. So we grateful for that partnership, and I appreciate all the work that Director Costello and Engineer Kerber have done and will be doing on this going forward. So thanks.
Thank you. Any additional comments? Well, I move the places on second and subsequent third and passage after January 1 of 2021. Brian?
Yes.
Myself, yes. Maureen?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
Bridget?
Yes.
Greg?
Yes.
Mike?
Yes.
Thank you. That completes the Environment, Public Works, Planning, Zoning Development Committee for this evening.
Great. The Local Government and Community Services Committee will then begin at 7:08 p.m. So we have 4 things to discuss tonight. The first thing is the 2020 recodification. I believe this is on, let me go back down. This is basically just an update of all of our city codes. We talked about this during the last committee meeting. And, I just want to make sure there was no further discussion before we move this to third. Does anybody have any thoughts or questions?
Sarah, I have one thing.
Yeah.
I, with the 2 pieces that we have on amending sections 143, if we could possibly hold this update until they also pass, if they're going to pass, just so they can be incorporated and we can do the full year of updates versus the next update having to put those 2 in and doing all the ones for next year as well. And I have talked to her, she's fine with doing that. And I already sent her the template, with the caveat that there may be additional changes, but for the changes in the code, so she could price that out for me.
Okay, and which ordinances are you hoping to get included in that?
2053 and 2054, amending vacation leave section and the payment under separation.
And those are all in first read, right? So we would probably pass this one then after the first of the year would be my guess, if that's the timing. So does anyone on council have an issue with delaying?
Not at all.
That
makes sense.
It's right. It should be past that second meeting in December, but I can't predict how it's going to go.
Listen, so here's what I will do then. Does anybody have any other comments?
I had a question.
Yeah.
Thank you. Could they be passed simultaneously? This ordinance in 2053 and 2054? Or
Yes,
just one?
that's what I'm.
Okay.
That's what I'm
I'm
saying.
sorry.
So that
I'm
they
sorry if
could
I missed
be.
that.
Mhm.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. So then I will move this. I move that we put the ordinance 2045, 2020 recodification on third reading. And do I need to make a different motion if we're going to delay which reading it is? Does it need to return to committee? What is the protocol on that?
But you can't put it on third reading and return to committee because it's gone.
Oh, well, you're right. Okay.
Just keep it in committee.
I'll just keep it in committee. I'll make a move to leave it in committee.
Remaining.
Okay, so leave in committee. Brian,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Sarah, yes. Bridget,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Perfect. So we will leave that in committee to time it appropriately to avoid massive recodification right after. So then I will bring back up Resolution 2017, establishing a city diversity, equity, and inclusion coalition. And so before I open the floor for discussion, we did receive an email that was asked to be read on the record. Liz, just double checking they're not on the line wanting to do it live.
I'm sorry, say that again.
I'm just looking to make sure that nobody's ready to this email live on the line, and I am pulling it up right now. I believe Kathy, right?
I do not see her here now.
Okay, so give me 1 second, and I'm going to pull that up and read this for the record. I think technology is not my friend tonight. Okay. Well, we all received, but specifically we received and asked to read this on the record during tonight's committee meeting, so I'm going to do that. I received an email that stated, "Greetings, my name is Kathy," and I'm going to butcher this, I'm so sorry, Eigenbrod. I live at 4750 West 211th Street. I have been a lifelong resident of Fairview Park. My children all went through Fairview schools, and now my grandchildren attend Fairview schools. I am emailing concerning the Diversity and Inclusion Coalition. I think the coalition is a great idea, but feel it should be inclusive of all minorities who feel discriminated against. This is a wonderful opportunity to reach out and help all people who may feel this pain. The coalition will have the ability to communicate with people, educate, and provide information that could benefit so many. I am also the legal guardian of 2 adults with special needs who otherwise would have no one to care for them. They have daily challenges. They have felt this pain, and I have felt this pain for them. It would be wonderful to give anyone who has felt the pain of discrimination a community to thrive in. Fairview Park has always been a tight-knit community, always willing to help each other out. I feel this coalition needs to carry that value, keeping open arms to anyone who may feel the pain of discrimination. As a community, we can learn and help mend the community as a whole. This is what has always made Fairview Park a great place to grow and where everyone belongs. Thank you for your time and consideration. Sincerely, Kathy Eigenbrod. So thank you, Kathy, for your comments. It's always wonderful to have people weigh in on how our legislation is going to affect you, our residents, in real time, right? We can't make good decisions without getting that feedback. So thank you for sending that to us. This actually dovetails quite nicely with a request that I received from Mayor Cooney to add another whereas clause. And I believe you guys were all copied on that as well. He's asking that we add a whereas clause, which states, whereas through the Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Coalition, the City of Fairview Park also desires that the members examine, explore, and identify ways individuals who live, work, or visit Fairview Park are welcomed and supported regardless of their race, sexual orientation, religion, age, natural origin, disability, or income. Whew, mouthful. So I guess what I want to do with those 2 pieces of input, and Mayor, please don't let me put words in your mouth. If you want to expand upon that, I'm happy to give you the floor. But what I want to do is take a look at the goals we were trying to accomplish and make sure that we are still accomplishing those goals as we are moving forward. And that's where I want to start the discussion. So the reason that this came up is that we had several people approach us at the beginning of the summer and state that they had either felt that they were discriminated against, had witnessed discrimination, or had, been following a national story. And all of those were related to the idea of racism as it pertains to Black people. So what I want to make sure that we are doing as we are writing this is that we're not losing sight of that was what our original goal was, this anti-racism task force. Because through quite a bit of discussion, we might not be there right now. And because we're giving guidance to these 9 individuals, I agree that we should be inclusive of everyone, but we need to make sure the guidance we are giving them matches the goals that we set out with. So that being said, I'd like to open the floor for discussion on both Kathy's email and on the mayor's proposed amendment and how we can drive this in our city, but still meet that original goal. Would anyone like to weigh in?
Sarah, this is Brian.
Yeah, hi, Brian.
Sorry, no video, but yeah, I mean, I agree with the I think the comments from a resident there and the mayor. I think we can maybe change the goals a little bit to be more all inclusive to everybody in the city. I think that's a better outcome for that committee to work on and work through. Maybe they start with some of the original goals we set out for, but those can change a little bit as they go. But I think if they can make it all more an encompassing coalition that they work together on and achieve more than just one specific thing, I think that's the best outcome from the city. I think we've talked a lot about it, but I think at the end of the day, we all want Fairview Park to be a great place to live for everybody. And I think we can change that, I think, a little bit to the goals. I think that we can accomplish that.
Okay, great. Does anyone else have any feedback on that?
Yeah, Councilwoman Waring.
Yes, please.
I know when we originally were even discussing the title of this, it was tossed around whether to include, the term racism within the title. And I believe, that was something we debated because that was and is, one of the driving forces behind us even launching this in the first place. But I could anticipate, in discussing, the issue of racism, without a doubt, other issues would arise as well. And rather than feel like, this coalition was exclusively focused on racism, we want to make sure that all of these issues are something that are addressed and that we open our eyes to. Racism, of course, being the one that we placed in the forefront to launch this coalition. But that when you would start these discussions and address these issues, other issues would arise. So you don't want to, limit what this coalition can focus on. And we want to make sure that we are, making sure that discrimination is something that is being addressed on all facets, or as many as we can. But as you said, we want to make sure the goal of, anti-racism is definitely not lost in all this.
Right.
So
Yeah.
I think Kathy is correct. Kathy's correct, but that's where, I'll be honest, we'll have to go back and look at these goals. So when this group, when we start meeting with them, we may have to tweak some things. That's all.
Yeah, and I would agree with them as well. And expanding to basically just include all protected classes, I don't think it's going to be taken away from anyone or taking attention away from what really got this going. So again, I think deep down everyone knows that we just want to make the community a better place. So whatever we have to do to get there. Thanks.
Would anybody else like to weigh in?
Madam Chair, I would echo what, previous speakers had to say. I think it's an opportunity to, make it more inclusive, make our community more inclusive. I do think a lot of things will overlap, as Councilwoman Adler said. And, hearing from from Kathy, it's someone who's, who's living this every day, and she sees, opportunities or, hopefully not, but maybe, opportunities lost or discrimination felt with respect to her family members or people she's taking care of. So I think, it shows that this is something that, would be helpful to her, and I'm sure others in broadening the scope, and the language that's in there in the resolution. But again, focusing on all of the concerns that have been addressed by council and others. So thank you.
Sure. So I guess before I continue talking, anybody else have anything they'd like to weigh in on? Okay. So I think if that's the case, then it sounds like the majority of council agrees with the amendment that Mayor Cooney has added. And that's fine. I think, within the questions and within the goals that we assign to this coalition, we can make sure that anti-racism stays at the forefront while also addressing other aspects. I do have concerns that in my business background, we never try to solve two problems on the same committee at the same time, right? Because it's hard to remain focused. So I think, we need to trust this committee that they can remain focused on, while they are focusing on the primary goals, that they can still, make sure that that's expansive to all people in the city. And I think we can trust them to do that.
Yeah, I think the term discrimination, Sarah, doesn't, that then makes it more inclusive. It's not where we're trying to do two things at once. That's where I think the term discrimination, racism is discriminatory behavior, so that still is, inclusive of that goal.
Okay, so then we can add that whereas clause, which will provide additional guidance to the coalition. And I guess then the other thing I wanted to talk about is the proposed application form. You all should have received that from Liz. Have you had a chance to take a look at so that we can mark up and move forward on that? So at the top, and actually, yeah. So at the top, basically it asks for applicant information, first name, last name, address, phone number, email, and length of residence within the city, just to gather some basic information and how we can contact them for an interview. And then the more up for debate portion, I suppose, we had kind of thrown all of these questions on here, knowing that some might be used in an interview setting, some might be used on the application. And I think that's where we need to be tonight, is to decide what are we going to do with those. And so we had asked that they provide a cover letter indicating the following, which is number 1, do you believe racism is a problem in society in general and also in Fairview Park? Number 2, why are you interested in serving on this task force? Number 3, what skills, abilities, or life experience do you have that makes you a good fit for this task force? And number 4, what is your vision for how this task force will impact our city? Previously, the discussion was that we did not want the idea of writing a letter or an essay or even 2 sentences to turn anybody off from applying. And I guess I want to bring that back. Do we feel like one of these, 2 of these, a hybrid of these would be appropriate? Where do we want to leave the bottom of this?
Sarah?
Yes.
I like actually all 4 of those. I think I would like to see answers to all 4 of those. And if people would have 1 sentence answers for them, that would be fine. They do not have to write paragraphs or essays or anything like that. cite sources or whatever. They just give us their thoughts. But I personally, I like all four of them.
So if that's the case, we could change please provide a cover letter. We could just say, please provide a response to the following. Response is
response would be better. Yeah, I think.
Yeah, I agree. I agree with you, Bridget. If you just say, please respond to the following questions, because, anyone writing a letter would probably labor over trying to make the flow from one to the next paragraph, flow neatly. Whereas if you just put these 4 questions, you can make your answer and then move on to the next one. I was going to ask if number 3, what skills, abilities, education, or life experiences do you have? I'd insert the word education only in the event there could be some resident of Fairview Park who has, extensive coursework in anti-racism, in the United States or something that we'd, like to be aware of. If there's some professor out there that actually focuses on this.
Madam Chair.
So that,
yes, ma'am.
I didn't see a copy of that. I don't know if that was sent to the administration. I'd like to see it, please.
I'm not sure, but I can send it to you.
You can put it up on the shared screen here real quick.
Oh, awesome.
Yeah.
Can you also email me a copy, please?
Yes.
Thank you.
So one thing I noticed that I think could be a slight adjustment is, I agree with what Maureen and Bridget said with writing in a response below. Maybe add another line in there or give a way to have a little bit more space. Because my thought is maybe someone would want more than just one line in if there was a little bit more space in there. Because in the true nature of the root of what the questions are getting at, I believe they're all getting at what they're intended to. Only modification I would suggest is transpose the word task force with coalition, and then otherwise I think the questions really hit at what what we're trying to focus on. So thank you.
Yep, absolutely. And given that it wouldn't be a cover letter any longer, but rather a response, yes, let's put more space in there. And thank you for the catch on task force. Mayor, I don't know if you've had a second to, quick, you're on the spot. You've seen it for 2 seconds, but I don't know if you have any thoughts while we're.
I think we had talked about this before. Number 3, I don't know. We don't want to. I think life experience is probably the most important thing, quite frankly, and with respect to something like this, as opposed to skills or abilities. And I'm just concerned that you might, somebody whose life experience might be more, might add a lot of value to the coalition. They may not feel that their skills or abilities would preclude them, but maybe they could focus on their life experience as opposed to their perceived skills or abilities. So
to me, it's not to me, it's not a you need them all.
Right.
To me, there's something that you think, there's some sort of value you believe you can bring to the table. What is it? And so whether it comes from a specific skill, a specific ability, like Maureen said, a specific education or a specific life experience, there's a reason you're interested in this, and we know you can bring value. And I guess to me, that's the heart of this question. What value do you believe you can bring to the table? But I feel like if
Sarah,
we were
we-
to ask that, people would stare at you like, "Oh, value? I don't know." Which is why I tried to guide that with here's the ways you could answer it, whether it's skills, abilities, life experience, etc. So if I'm not getting to the heart of that, I'm happy to change it.
Well, that might be what the value, I think, what you said, as opposed to a good fit. You know, what skills or abilities or life experience would be of value to the coalition? You feel would be of value to the coalition?
Perfect.
And Sarah, if I may, you might even just, as Mayor Cooney is mentioning, life experience may be the greatest source of knowledge. You might put that first, you know, even though you have the or in there, just change the order so someone doesn't, you know, sometimes you freeze if the first couple things frighten you, where the life experience would be like, great, you know, this is why I want to do this. And then, so it's just an order thing.
I agree. Okay. Any other comments on the application form? Okay.
It's good progress. Thanks for getting it together.
Yeah.
Sarah, the only one other thing, since we did just mention discrimination being, you know, being something that we would focus on, if there might be inserting one more question regarding, you know, do you feel some, you know, and again, I'm just saying, you know, if we feel discrimination is something that needs to be addressed within our city, you know, or in our, within our society, to be consistent, I guess, with question one. We could
Do you
follow
believe
it
that
up
they're
with,
mirrored questions, or do you believe that you could adjust question number one to say, do you believe racism and discrimination is a problem?
that
Or do
probably
you
would,
need two separate questions?
we probably could partner them. That would probably be fine. I think, you know, this is just to launch us to get the value, the candidates that are interested. And then obviously in conversation and interviewing these people, we can expand on it more.
Right.
So yeah, it could work either way then, because we'll have conversations with people.
Okay. Any other comments on this resolution? It is my recommendation, given the number of changes we have talked about, that we remain in committee until we can see a more finalized application and piece of legislation. So I'm going to make a motion that we leave this in committee. Brian,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes,
Sarah, yes, Bridget,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Yes.
wonderful. Okay. Whew, deep breath, right, guys? We're making some serious progress, and I'm very proud of us. Yay! Okay, so
Thank you,
remaining.
Good job, sir.
Thank you. So we're going to leave that in committee, and we're going to move on to ordinance 2050, the Gemini membership fees. So just as a heads up, I believe it's every year, we need to reassess our membership fees with the Gemini Center and assess whether they're going to go up, go down, or stay the same. So I believe the recommendation this year is to leave them the same. And I have asked Director Kemp to be here to discuss that with us. And also, Mayor, if you'd like to weigh in to start with, however the two of you would like to explain why, what we're doing and why we're doing it.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I did have an opportunity to talk with Director Kemp. As you all know, he's relatively new to the city, making a lot of headway with things. And, you know, we did talk about this, and due to the issues that we're currently facing with the pandemic, what we faced earlier in the year, and also, you know, to give Carrie, you know, sufficient time to, you know, to research our facility, our programs, and possibly, you know, neighboring communities. We felt it was best to keep the rates as they were this year. It's been, a challenge for a lot of our residents and members. Um, we have a lot of people who are going to the Gemini Center, but there's also a lot who are concerned, understandably so. And so we just, we felt it probably best to leave things as is going forward into 2021. And I'll let Director Kemp expand on that, if that's okay, Madam Chair.
Yes, please, Director Kemp.
Hi, good evening, Madam Chair. Good evening, City Council. Thank you for having me on tonight. Just wanted to really echo what Mayor Cooney said. This year has been a very challenging time for many of our members, and raising our membership fees at a time where many of our members aren't even utilizing their current memberships, it just doesn't seem like the right thing to do at this time. But it does give us an opportunity to really look at and benchmark with some of our neighboring communities and what they're doing with their membership rates, and looking at ways to make sure we're pricing our membership rates at a price point that is not only comparable to them, but more so fair to our community members and residents. So that's and the biggest reason why leaving them the same is our recommendation.
So I'll ask the very tough question. Does leaving them the same, when we know that our debt service is going up, assuming we can't refinance, right? Is that a problem for the city financially, or is this something that we can manage?
I'll jump in on that, and Director Singal might have some things to add as well. I mean, I think it's just hard based on the pandemic. You just have a lot of people who aren't, again, understandably not using the facility. It's been a challenge there. There's been some lost revenue because of the closure, and then because of not as much use. We have canceled a lot of classes. When the classes were open, they were, required to be socially distanced. I had heard from people who were not members who wanted to participate in some of our classes, but because there were limited spots, we left it just available to members. So, yeah, of course, anytime you blunt or potentially lower a source of revenue, it's going to have an effect. But I think overall, we can get through it. We are constantly looking at things to other revenue sources, and I know we are looking at refinancing the debt. So I don't know, Director Singal, if you would have anything you'd like to add with respect to that.
Yeah, thank you, Mayor. So debt service is going up $61,000 in 2021 compared to 2020. Challenge there, over the time that I've been here, 5 years, is that how do we grow the membership? And obviously with the pandemic this year, it's tough to gauge membership activity due to the center being closed, and Dr. Kemp has said, individuals not utilizing the facility like they would in normal times. So we do have a carry forward balance that could be utilized if needed next year. And again, we are still working on refinancing the Gemini debt, and that's imperative that it gets done to smooth out the debt service to more align with the cash flow. So again, we have carry forward balances that be able to use next year if needed. Hopefully things will become more normalized and we'll be able to gauge, the membership, number of memberships sold, and hopefully Director Kemp has some ideas of how to, so we can grow that number without raising the rates too significantly. So that's where we currently are today, unfortunately.
Sarah,
Thank you. Yes, Councilman Minnick.
there was some discussion about the membership because of the virus, extending one's membership for a length of time because of a non-usage of the facility. Was that ever discussed any further by the administration?
Councilman Minnick, let me answer that real quick. The memberships were extended for each of the members for the amount of time that we lost due to the closure. So those had already taken place, those membership expansions. Or extensions, excuse me. There was also the opportunity for our members to put their memberships on hold. And that time has since passed since we have opened back up. But those are things that we're also currently exploring now with the number of the positive cases starting to go up again.
Thank you, Director. Will the membership be advised when their membership expires?
Yes, sir.
Thank you, Director.
Excuse me, Sarah. Do you know when the last time we increased rates? Sarah, you're muted.
Okay, well, it sounded like somebody else was going to have a better answer than I'm not positive. So.
Yeah, may I answer that? Just
yes,
looking back through past records, it looks like the last time that the memberships were raised were from the ordinance in 2017 for the year of 2018. So we are currently going off the same rates that we've had in 2018, 2019, 2020, and looking to keep them the same for 2021.
Okay. And then Director Kemp, what other ideas do you have to increase revenue? I was at a meeting last week that showed the COVID-19, this spike right now won't reach the highest level until January. So that would mean that our New Year's resolution, people going to the Rock, might not happen. So what are some other your ideas?
Well, we've already started talking about some of the things, and we still have quite a bit to explore. But basically what I'm looking at is the value of our membership and what that brings here, and trying to sell that value with some of the extra things that you're able to get, doing tiered rates for our rentals, for our programs, where the membership rate will be the most bang for your buck, if you will. And then for residents, the next rate would be your higher tier. And then for non-resident, non-members, a much higher tier, trying to give people the incentive to purchase memberships in order to get some of the program offerings at a better rate, the rentals and reservations at a better rate. Those are some of the things that we're looking at. We also need to look at the price of all of our programs and all of our rentals to make sure that we are bringing, the best value forward and selling ourselves the best that we can. So those are some of the things that we're looking at doing, but we still have a lot of exploring and benchmarking to still do in that respect.
Thank you.
Does anyone else have any questions for Director Kemp, the mayor, on the membership rates?
Gary, thanks for joining us and explaining. I appreciate it.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so I'm going to suggest that we move this to second reading, and I'd like to return it to committee. Now that we've gotten the explanations, I'd like to make sure that we all have time to chew on it and discuss it again. So Brian,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Sarah, yes, Bridget,
Yes.
Greg,
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
Awesome. So that will be then returned to committee. So, and thank you, Director Kemp, for coming in tonight to discuss that with us. It's really appreciated that you made time for us. Okay, so this brings us to the issue of Fairview Park Codified Ordinance 1145.18, temporary political signs. This is a heated discussion in our community every election year. And I guess it's in our committee because it is heated. The idea that we have an ordinance that says you can only put them up 30 days before the election. Yet, from what I understand, the Supreme Court won't enforce it. So my question is, should we, as a group, remove the ordinance, repeal the ordinance that gives us that here in the city? Or should we do nothing and just remove this issue from committee? Given that realistically, if the Supreme Court says that that is free speech and there is a right to it, we really don't have any say. So I'll open the floor for discussion.
Sarah? Yeah.
Yep.
Obviously, Sarah, if the Supreme Court is going to overrule Fairview's ruling, there's really no point to it. You know, that's where, and so I know that in the last election, you know, it was, like you said, a heated debate. Personally, you know, I loved it many moons ago when Fairview didn't allow any political signs at all until 2 weeks before. But that argument was lost, you know, decades ago. So I think, as you said, if the Supreme Court is going to overrule it, then, you know, people that are adhering to Fairview's rule and only putting them up 30 days in advance are definitely losing the advantage of getting their signs up earlier. And the people that are getting them up earlier are abiding by what the Supreme Court has ruled to be, you know, legal. So it's kind of pointless for us to have an ordinance that won't hold up in Supreme Court if it is in fact a violation of, you know, freedom of speech.
Yeah, and that's really the concern, I guess, is that it's been ruled that it is a violation of freedom of speech to ask someone to remove it. What I will say is, does it serve as a deterrent, you know, for people who do want to abide by the ordinances? I don't know. I mean, I guess realistically, there's no way for us to enforce it, is the end of it. So the question is, oh, go ahead.
For this to be changed, would that have to go to the voters, or is that something we could do?
It's a codified ordinance. I believe we could do
it. Madam Chair, it is something, if I can answer that question.
Yeah, please.
Yeah, it's something that you could amend, but you really want to be careful. It's, you know, the U.S. Supreme Court really had a very strict ruling with respect to content-based restrictions by municipalities. As the chair mentioned, the issue is enforcement. You know, if you enforce it, you could be restricting somebody's First Amendment rights and subjecting the city to liability. And, you know, we, in anticipation of this election, which, you know, I think might be over, I'm not sure. Thought I heard something earlier today, but about that. But in anticipation of that, we did a little bit of research, and we found that, you know, even very, very, very vulgar signs, and I know there were some signs, in our community, but, even vulgar signs were considered protective, speech. So, in narrowing this ordinance to make sure that it's, enforceable, you'd be surprised at, quite frankly, I was surprised at uh, what, what courts have determined could not be restricted by a municipality. So it's a very tricky slope. The $75 fine that somebody would pay, it could pale in comparison to the really would, the exposure to the city would be in attorney's fees. There's a lot of attorneys, First Amendment attorneys, who might look to an unlawful enforcement and sue the city. And, if they were successful, they would, likely be entitled to attorney's fees. So it's something we'd have to be very careful if we, I would recommend council be very careful and if they were going to amend it.
It sounds like it's about two different things, though.
I'm
It sounds
sorry?
like they're talking about eliminating it or just
No.
removing the committee, like not trying to enforce it. I don't know. Maybe I was wrong, but
So my recommendation was to do one of two things. The first thing is to either repeal an ordinance that we are completely unable to enforce, or we remove it from committee, leaving the ordinance there in case the Supreme Court ever rules differently, and then an ordinance is just there. But it's in committee, so we have to decide which path we're going to take.
Sarah?
Yes,
Sarah?
please.
Would it be possible that the law director just review the pertinent ordinance and offer an opinion reference to the legality of it?
I don't think we even need to do that, Bill, because right now I could tell you that if you told somebody they couldn't put a sign up 30 days before the election, you're going to lose that battle. If you tell somebody they have to remove a sign 2 days afterwards, you're going to lose that battle because it's all content based. So this ordinance would not be enforceable. Those two provisions are definitely not enforceable. So, leaving it on the books and not enforcing it, I don't see a problem with that. Trying to amend it to comply at this time, I think would be very difficult based on the way it's written. So if you just took it out of committee, I don't see a problem with that at this point. Thank you.
Thank you, Director.
And if I may add, there might be some case law that comes down the pike here in the next year or two that will provide a little more direction as to what municipalities can do with respect to this type of restriction. And also it talks about in the ordinance, 30 days before the election. Is that 30 days before early voting starts? Is that 30 days before, before, election day? So, that would be something too that would have to be, I would suggest be visited at the time of any amendment, whenever that may be. Thank you.
So before I move forward, does anybody else have any commentary on this topic?
Yes, Sarah?
Well,
Yes,
law.
please.
Okay.
Oh, I'm sorry, Councilwoman King.
Sarah, I think that if we're not going to enforce this, then we shouldn't have it on the books. If something changes, we can always put a new ordinance forward. But if we're not going to enforce it in any way, then there's no reason to have it. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilwoman Adler?
I agree with Bridget, because I'm thinking, someone may think that is the rule, and then they go to the trouble, of looking it up. They would see in Fairview Park that we still have it in the books. And then it just leads to us having to explain, well, we left it on the books, even though it's not enforceable. And then that's really, I think it's being irresponsible, because if I thought the rule was 30 days, just because I always thought that was the rule, and I call out, I see it in print, and then I call up one of us only to be told, well, it's not enforceable. Their first question would be, well, then why is it on the books? So we probably should take it off.
But you have the law director's opinion.
Law director,
I
may I?
realize the law,
Go ahead,
What's that?
Councilman Edlin.
yeah, I realize the law director, he stated his opinion, which if he said it's fine to leave it in the books, but it's more for us to save face with our, with the community. Should we ever get a call about it and they call us out on it being on the books, we just look silly if somebody asks us, well, it's on the books, and then we say we know, and then we go on to tell them it's not enforceable, and the conversation goes, well, why do you have it on the books? We would be, well, because they said we could leave it on the books. I mean, it just seems like we're addressing it right now, so in the books.
So, law director, may I ask, my reasoning for leaving it on the, I agree with both Bridget and with Maureen, but my only reasoning for leaving it on the books would be if the Supreme Court, or to Mayor Cooney's point, if new case law comes down in the next couple of years, is it better to leave it on and not enforce it and hopefully it comes back as something enforceable, or is it better to make sure that we have only enforceable laws on record?
Well, it could go either. It could
There's
go
a
either
legal
way.
thing.
I mean, if we get, if the Supreme Court rules and it does become enforceable, then you don't have to change anything. If they come in and they have some ruling that states that certain portions of it are enforceable, then it's on the books. But it's entirely up to council. I mean, you can't remove it. I don't see any reason why you couldn't remove it. It's just that down the road we don't know what the case law is going to say. I guess that's how I would put it.
Tim, whose First Amendment rights are protected? The homeowners or the person who has the sign? Like if it's my sign, my campaign sign. If it's my
It's the homeowners.
It's the homeowners. So could we change it then to have for local elections, make the candidate or the campaign responsible for not putting them out earlier? Because I know when I had my campaign, all the signs that were out in the lawns came from my campaign. Homeowners didn't personally purchase them. So could we hold the person running for office to a higher standard then?
No, it would be the same. It would be the same First Amendment issues. Okay. Yeah.
Did I say get rid of it?
And I don't know which one I want to do, so I don't know which motion to make right now. Do we want to make a motion to have the law director give us a draft that would repeal it, or do we want to remove it from committee? And because I don't know, and we seem to have somewhat differing opinions, I'm going to give us some more time to think about it. I'm going to return it to committee. And the next time we discuss it, we will come up with either we repeal it or we remove it from committee. I want everybody to have some time to think on that. And I'm going to do some research on what other communities have done as well.
Okay, I was going to ask Sarah, if you or Tim Riley could do that, that would be interesting to see what's on their books. Thank you.
Madam Chair, the next election's in May, just so you know, just give you a forewarning,
You know what? We may or may not be able to get to this decision by May. Fingers crossed. So I'm going to make a motion to leave it in committee, and I'm going to start with Brian.
Yes.
Bill.
Yes.
Maureen.
Yes.
Sarah, yes. Bridget.
Yes.
Greg.
Yes.
Mike.
Yes.
All right, remains in committee by a vote of 7-0, and I believe that ends the local government and community services at 8 p.m.
Great, thank you, Sarah. So the Finance Committee will start at 8 p.m. and we have 7 things to discuss. The first is Resolution 2016, placing the fire levy renewal on the May 2021 ballot. Director Single, did you get paperwork back for this from the ordinance we passed from the county yet?
I have not, no.
Okay, Well, then I am going to make a motion to keep this in committee because we can't move it out until we get that proper paperwork. So I'd like to make a motion to keep this resolution in committee. Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes,
Sarah.
Yes.
I will vote yes. And Greg?
I actually had a question.
Yep.
I was going to ask Chief if keeping it in committee throws their timeline or anything off. Another committee meeting.
Well, we can't pass it though. If we pass, it would have to go to third read and final passage, and we're unable to pass it until we get the other paperwork back from the county.
Yeah, Chief, are you still on the line?
Chief's not here, Councilman, but as Councilmember King said, we need the certification back from the auditor's office before the resolution can be passed. And he's aware of, that requirement, so it's not going to throw the timeline off.
Okay. All right. My vote's yes. Thank you.
If I can, Councilwoman King.
Yes.
Greg, I did send you that certification. I forwarded it to you today from the county. So we have received it. It just needs to be signed off on by you. So I did forward that to you earlier today. So it should, I don't know what you guys want to keep it or.
Yeah, I see it now. Thank you. I'll print it right now.
So, do you have a lot to do on that, or is it just a signature? Put this forward next week or in 2 weeks.
I will sign it tonight, and Liz, you want me to scan and email that to you?
Yep, that's fine.
All right. I will take care of it.
Okay. Well then, can I change my motion and put it up for the third read and final passage? Am I able to do that, Mike?
Sure. We're just in committee here. This is nothing binding.
Okay.
No.
All right. Well, then I'm going to take another vote on resolution 2016 and put it up for third read and final passage. Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Maureen,
yes,
Sarah.
Yes.
I will vote yes. And Greg?
Yes.
All right, it passes. Next up is ordinance 2051, the 2020 supplemental appropriations. That was on first read last time. Director Single, do you want to talk about this for us?
Sure, I'll defer to the mayor first. I'll just see if you have any comments prior to me going through it.
Mayor Cooney?
No, just, again, with a lot of uncertainty with what happened earlier this year with the pandemic. I know this is typically the approach that has been taken by the administration. I think Greg's going to hit the highlights for you based on, the changes to the budget based on due to the pandemic. So I would defer to him going forward. Thank you, Director.
Thank you, Mayor. So, like I've done in the past, I will hit the larger items, say $5,000 or more. Or if there are any questions on any of the items, please don't hesitate to ask. So the first one on page 1 is a proposed reduction of $9,400 in the Fire Protection Regional EMS Department, and that is monies that will not be spended this year based on our original budget. Moving to page 2, in the Recycling and Solid Waste Disposal Department, proposed reduction of $20,000. Again, those expenditures, the amount appropriated will not be needed based on the original budget. And then for the motor vehicle maintenance department, again, a reduction of $5,000 in fuel, oil, and lubricants is the appropriated monies from earlier this year will not be needed. So let me stop questions on those.
Well, I have a question. How, like recycling and solid waste disposal, how are we saving $20,000? How are we not going to spend that? I don't understand.
So initially, the budgetary amount was somewhere around $1 million when we looked at both the amount that's expended in the general fund and the amount that's expended in the solid waste removal fund, and the amount that was budgeted at the beginning of the year is more than sufficient to pay for the actual cost of the rubbish pickup and disposal. So again, those dollars will not be, additional dollars will not be needed this year. It could be that tonnage came in less than what was budgeted, but we did budget a little bit higher than what we spent in previous years, and we are coming in less than what was budgeted.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions on page 1 or 2 before I move to page 3? Seeing none, moving to page 3 in the Service and Development Director Department. The total impact here is no increase or decrease to the department. We are proposing to reduce the wages by $5,900 and increase the tree and lawn services line item by $5,900 due to hazardous tree removal expenses. And then in the Municipal Lands and Building Department, again, we will be proposing to reduce the full-time service wages by $12,363, and then increasing the other subtotal, which in the amount of $27,987, which is broken out as follows: $16,000 for tree removals, $9,737 for aerial truck rentals, and then $2,250 for Lorraine Road streetscape mulch. And then the last in civil service, the proposed increase, $250 in civil service meetings. There were additional meetings needed for this year, and then an increase of $4,035, and that's mainly due to there's going to be a police entrance exam in December of this year. So any questions on that page before I go to the next page?
Yes, Director Single, if I may.
Okay.
So you're recommending both under the Service and Development Director's line item and under the Municipal Lands and Building, that we're going to be decreasing personnel line items, so essentially salary, by almost $18,000 or somewhere around there. Is that related to the fact that we had furloughs and layoffs over the summer, or what exactly is that reduction? How did we end up with too much money there?
You're right. So it would be the furloughs and the layoffs, and also the fact that we did offer Shared Work Ohio to the AFSCME union, and I think almost all of them took advantage of that. So that, again, further reduced the wages that were needed.
Okay, but so what I'm hearing though is we were able to take advantage of a lot of those programs to save money for the city, but we didn't actually save money. We've now just reallocated it. Is that accurate?
We are reallocating the dollars for items that were purchased through the year, like, for example, the tree removals. But there was significant savings with respect to the expenditures that were not incurred due to the furloughs and also the Shared Work Ohio program. So we could have reduced the wages more, but what we're trying to do here is just not increase the general fund appropriations at this time.
Okay, thank you for that explanation.
Any other questions on that page? Seeing none, moving forward to the county deductions and auditor or audit examiners. So the proposed increase here is $76,257, broken out as follows: $4,895 for workers' compensation, $44,842 in auditor and treasurer fees, $20,500 in income tax cost, collection expenses to the regional income tax agency, $5,900 to the county for the election expenses, and then $120 for the cost that the state of Ohio charges for the collection of the net profit tax for the community. So let me stop with that. Any questions on that increase? Seeing none. Moving down to the other administration or administrative department. Reduction of $61,146. That's mainly due to removing the advance that we included in the original budget of $79,500. That was to be advanced. That money was to be advanced to fund 290, which will be on a page we'll talk about here in a few minutes. It was a project with Rocky River. Rocky River is now going to be the point agency or the lead agency on this project, so that advance will not be necessary. So the total impact to the general fund is $0. Any questions on that before I move down to the street construction maintenance and repair fund? Okay, seeing none. In Fund 210, street construction maintenance and repair, proposed decrease of $250,000. That's in the street improvements line. What I'm trying to do here is just match revenues with the proposed appropriations. Our street projects didn't get started this year due to the pandemic. So these projects are being delayed. So I'm just again matching revenues to the appropriations. We are seeing a little bit of a reduction in what we originally budgeted for gasoline tax. People aren't driving as much. The cost of gasoline is less. So we're seeing a little bit of a reduction there in revenues this year. So we're not going to do the street project, so I thought just match the revenues with the proposed appropriations and reduce the fund by $250,000. Any questions on that fund? Seeing none, moving to the recreation fund. Again, same with the same theme, just trying to match revenues with the appropriations. The proposal here is reduce the personnel subtotal by $400,000. So $50,000 reduction in full-time recreation wages and $350,000 reduction in part-time recreation wages. And then reduce the other subtotal, $300,000, which would be in building improvements and also park improvements. So again, same theme is that we had some improvements that were part of the original budget that council passed in March. Those aren't being done this year. So in order to match the revenues with the appropriations, the administration is asking to reduce that appropriation by $700,000. Any questions on that fund?
Hey, Director Single, it's Sarah again. So earlier tonight, we talked about carry forward balances from the rec center, which could help with the fact that we're not raising fees potentially, I guess, assumedly. Is this what you're talking about? Are these line items what you're talking about, or are those separate?
So these line items were approved, the appropriations were approved by council earlier this year. When I looked at the recreation fund revenue line items, as of today, I'm seeing that the forecast is showing that actual collections will be about $700,000 less than what was forecasted in March. So again, just trying to match the revenues with the appropriations. I mean, the difficulties here is that just looking at the membership fees, for the last few years, we've been right around $450,000 to $460,000 in membership fees. In March of this year, we were at $172,000. So, I would imagine there we're going to be forecast about 50% less, so roughly about 200 and let's call it 230,000 in membership fee revenue this year. Plus, with our youth charges and adult charges, and we just didn't have the programs, senior, Silver Sneakers program, center being closed and limited activity there now. We're trying to really be cognizant of our expenses there, and that Bain Park project that we talked about earlier tonight, the match from the city's match is going to be expensed out of the recreation fund. So I think it's imperative for council as we move forward is to really keep a close eye on, the park improvements and the city's commitment to that, because, in the past, those expenses have always been taken out of the recreation fund. And with the debt service increasing and with, some concern as to where we will be with our, I'll call ancillary revenues, membership fees, program fees, et cetera. We're going to really have to rely on growth on both the property tax side and also the income tax side to manage that recreation budget long term, and then also refunding the debt here, hopefully in the near future.
Okay. Well, thank you for that explanation. It's not fantastic news, but at least we know what we're looking at. Thank you.
Yeah. Okay, you're welcome. Any other questions on the recreation fund, or I'll move forward to the virus relief fund. So seeing none, so we're all aware of the CARES Act money that the city received. $1,227,851.28. The way that it's being allocated currently is $1,023,200 roughly in personnel, so wages, benefits, et cetera, and then in the other subtotal, which would be building improvements, costs for cleaning supplies, et cetera. We probably will have to adjust this once we finalize all the I'm going to call other subtotal expenses, so the cost for the building improvements and also for like sanitary products and things like that. So once those purchase orders get closed out here over the next couple of weeks, we'll probably have to amend this ordinance to properly reflect the areas where these funds are being expensed. So that'll be one amendment that'll be forthcoming to this ordinance here in the near future. Any questions on that fund before I move forward to the next page? Seeing none, moving to the next page, Fund 290, I just talked about this fund here, is This is the project, it's a $159,000 project. We were gonna receive 50% from Rocky River, we were getting a grant for the other 50%. Again, Rocky River is going to be the lead agency on that, and they will receive our grant proceeds, so there will not be a need to appropriate monies for this project. Any questions on that? Seeing none, moving to the next page, I'll just go right to the Fairview Park Sanitary Sewer Fund. Again, staying with the theme of trying to match revenues with appropriations. The proposal here is to reduce the full-time service wages by $15,000, and then also reduce the equipment line item by $50,000 and the sewer rehabilitation line item by $100,000 for a total reduction of $165,000. Any questions on that fund? Okay, seeing none, moving forward to the special hold account. The proposal here is to reduce the full-time senior life wages line item by $50,000. Included in the original budget, we were going to utilize $50,000, which is being held in this fund, to pay for wages at the senior life office, due to that facility being closed for numerous months this year. That is not necessary at this time, so we're proposing to reduce that line item by $50,000. And this is a side note, in the 2021 budget, we will be closing this special hold account. It is no longer an authorized fund per governmental accounting standards. So we are going to be closing this fund and then reallocating the dollars in this fund to other areas within the financial framework of the community. So I'll be able to explain that to you once we work with our auditors and determine where all of these funding sources will reside here moving forward. So any question on that? Seeing none, moving down to the redevelopment fund, proposing to increase the appropriations by $85,000, and that's due to the SBA micro grants that council had approved earlier this year. Any questions on that fund before we move to the next page? Seeing none, moving forward to the next page, the POPUS fund. The proposal here is to reduce the personnel line down $20,000. We just aren't having many officers working in that program this year. Hopefully that will change here in 2021. So again, staying with the theme of matching revenues to appropriations, to the administration's asking to reduce that appropriation by $20,000. Any questions on that? Seeing none, moving forward to Fund 731, the Health Insurance Reserve Fund. This is where the hospitalization benefits get charged. The proposal is to increase the amount appropriated by $10,000, and that's mainly to pay for prisoner medical expenses that the city incurred in 2020. Any questions on that? Seeing none, moving forward to Fund 733, the Retiree Accrued Benefits Fund. The administration is asking to increase that appropriation by $10,000. There was an additional retirement that we were not aware of at budget time and is necessitating the need to increase the appropriation. Any questions on that? Seeing none, moving to the next page in the emergency medical.
I have a question about line 741, the cable TV franchising fee.
Okay, go ahead.
In the cash, the statement of cash sheets that we were given,
Okay.
from 11/23, it says that there's $90,801.28 in that ending balance account. But then on this sheet, it says zero.
Yep, there, because we are not, the administration is not asking to appropriate any dollars out of that fund at this time.
Okay, right, thank you.
I think that was 900,000, right?
That's correct, 900,000, yes. 900 and some change.
Oh, no, yep, you're right.
Thank you.
Any other questions on that page before I move forward to the next page? Okay, seeing none, this in the EMS collection fund. The proposal here is to reduce the appropriation by 90,000. 81,100 would be in the form of wages and hazmat pay, overtime, hospitalization, life insurance, et cetera. That's moving one fireman that's being charged out of this fund into the general fund. What's happening here is that the EMS receipts are lagging the earlier estimate, the earlier forecast from in this year. So in order to balance the fund, we are having to account for a firefighter in the general fund instead of this EMS fund, and then also included in this appropriation is to reduce the ambulance billing line, so the charge for the ambulance billing by $8,900, so a total reduction of $90,000. And this is per the chief, but quite frankly, there's just not enough revenue in there to fully support the additional firemen that's being charged out of this fund. Any questions on that?
Director Singal and Mayor Cooney, if I may. So we're moving a firefighter out of this fund into the general fund. One of the interesting aspects of our fire department is that they operate partially on levy, partially on receipts, and partially on general fund, right? It's fascinating to take a look at their finances and how they manage to do it. My question would be, what is the plan for 2021 appropriations? And maybe we're going to get to that. I guess I should have waited. Are we planning to leave them in the general fund, or is the plan to move them in 2021 back to where they quote unquote should be?
Well, the question will be, can the estimated EMS collection amount support? I think the chief had 3 individuals in there, and moving forward, I would say as of today that 2 individuals will be charged out of there, and one will continue to be charged out of the general fund until such time as the account or the fund generates enough of a fund balance that it can absorb another employee to be expensed out of that fund. So just looking at the report, at the beginning of 2017, this fund had $187,643 in it, and at the beginning of this year, it had $51,000. So I'll give Chief Raffin credit is where he's tried to take some strain off of the general fund. He has moved these into his the other 2 funds that he has. But from talking to him, we're not generating enough in the form of EMS fees to be able to account for the 3 firefighters that were being expensed out of that fund.
Okay. I'm going to try to take a mental note and a physical note. If you could also, when we get to budgeting, taking a look at that in February, can you please help us to understand how the fire department is changing its structure, just so that we can try to forecast forward how it will affect our general fund, how we think emergency medical billing is going to go. And I know that'll probably be all based on the pandemic, so we can't answer tonight. So if you and I could both just take a note that we should discuss that in February, I would appreciate it.
Certainly, certainly. And I'm sure the chief will be more than happy to discuss it as well. As you all know, he's a CPA at heart, and he enjoys working these and putting his figures together.
Yep. Thank you.
Although he won't publicly admit that. Any other questions on Fund 781? Seeing none, the last item is in the Capital Projects Fund. Again, we'll stay with the same theme of matching revenues with our projects. And we had some projects, again, that were planned for this year, and due to the pandemic, this didn't happen. So the proposal here is just to reduce the capital projects line fund by $1.3 million. So total impact would be a reduction in the appropriations of a little bit over $1.4 million. Any questions?
And so, I'm sorry, I'm going to make this take all night. Director Single, the reduction of 1.4 million approximately, how does that relate then to the changes we saw in income taxes coming in? Are we close to being able to balance that with these reductions, or are we still kind of far off?
That's a good question. So, fortunately, our income tax collections aren't as dire as we reported back earlier this year. When we originally received the projection from the Regional Income Tax Agency, there was some significant concern as to how much we may lose with respect to income tax. I still expect, still with a month and a half still to go here, I still expect there to be a slight decrease in the amount that was projected earlier, maybe a couple $100,000 off. Fortunately for the city of Fairview Park, and I'm going to say for all public entities, the dividend reimbursements or the workers' comp payments, we're receiving 3, I'm going to call it dividend reimbursements from workers' comp this year. Fortunately, the next one that we're receiving is going to be in December. It's going to be a little bit over $700,000. So that's going to help stabilize the budget for this year. We've already started looking at the 2021 budget, and I've talked to the representatives at RETA, and they're forecasting maybe a $200,000 to $400,000 decrease rather in our income tax projections as compared to what they believe we'll collect this year. So 2021 will be a challenge. I don't expect any further dividend reimbursements from workers' comp or any additional CARES Act money at this time. But it'll definitely be a challenge as we work in 2021. But again, to answer your question, with this third dividend check that we'll be receiving in December, that's going to help stabilize our figures for 2020. 2021, we still have some work to do to determine the impact on it.
Thank you. I appreciate you letting me put you in the hot seat to answer those questions tonight.
I appreciate the questions. Anytime. So I would ask on this is that there's going to be a minimum two changes. One, I said earlier, the coronavirus fund. The other one is in Fund 709, we're going to have to, the redevelopment fund, we're going to have to increase the appropriation there due to the ordinance the council passed last week with respect to the legal services. So I would just ask us to run three reads, and we'll make the amendments on the, at the, what would that be, the next committee meeting?
Yeah.
If that's okay with council.
Yeah, so I'd like to make a motion to put ordinance 2051 on second read and return to committee then. Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
I will vote yes, and Greg?
Yes.
All right. So next up is ordinance 2052, the 2021 temporary appropriations. Was on first read last time. Director Stingle, do you want to talk us through this one as well?
Certainly. So this legislation, as everybody knows, gives us spending authority through the first quarter of 2021. What we did here is we just looked at our first quarter expenses for 2020, made any adjustments where we thought there might need to be some adjustments, for example, in wages, and then it's in front of council this evening. So as I stated a few minutes ago, we are starting to work on the 2021 budget. This item is necessary to give us spending authority for the first quarter of the year. Not much more I could add unless council has any questions.
Does anyone have any questions about this? Okay, then I'd like to make a motion to put this on second read and remain in committee. Mike,
Second and return?
second and return to committee, yeah. Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
I will vote yes, and Greg?
Yes.
Okay. Next up is ordinance 2053, amending section 143.23 vacation leave. All right. Mayor, do you want to talk to this on this at all?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. Well, there's a theme here, the pandemic. It has required a few adjustments, and one of them is to this ordinance. But actually, it's probably good timing in that currently, as it stands, administrative employees have to use any unused vacation time up at the end of February of the following year. The AFSCME and the police union contracts allow those members to use their unused vacation time through June 30th. We had a number of employees who were laid off, took furloughs, and were unable to use vacation time throughout the course of the year. Obviously, some of those layoffs were voluntary, some were involuntary. The furloughs were, voluntary, and they were a benefit to the city going forward. And we thought it would, it was going to be unworkable for a lot of people to use their vacation time that they've earned by February. And again, to put it to have a little more consistency with respect to the AFSCME and police union members, we thought this would be a good amendment. And note, I did not talk about the fire department because their contract requires that they use all their vacation prior to the end of the year. So that's why that wasn't addressed. So that was the reason for the amendment. It was brought to, a couple of directors brought it to my attention, talked with them, talked with Greg, and this is what we've proposed. Thank you.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions about that?
Councilwoman King, if I may.
Yes.
Thank you. Mayor Cooney, could you just verify for me? This is what I think is happening, and I want you to verify that this is correct. On January 1st every year, we award vacation to our employees. And previously, they had to use that, what was awarded on January 1st by February of the next year. Now we're going to allow them to have till June of the next year. So 18 months to use that period of time. So we're basically just allowing them to roll it for a period of 6 months. Is that correct?
That is correct. Director Single can correct me if I'm wrong, because there's so many different vacations that we deal with. But I think that is correct in that people, they are awarded vacation January 1st. There is sometimes it's tied to their service date when they start, but they are awarded it January 1st. And if they can only roll over 2 weeks, I believe, Director Single, into the following year. And if they don't use it, then it's forfeited. So again, you're really hampering people by limiting their ability through February.
No, and that's fair. I just wanted to make sure because, some organizations award it per paycheck. Some award it, a lump sum at the beginning of a period of time. And I just want to make sure that I was correct. We award it as a lump sum, and this is just extending their ability to use it.
Sorry, yeah. Greg, is that correct?
We load the vacation at the beginning of January. So if you're due 2 weeks vacation, you get 80 hours included in your vacation bank on or around January 2nd. And then the individual can use that 80 hours over the year. And if they happen to leave earlier, then we go back and we compute what they actually earned. And at that time, we determine whether or not the employee would owe money back to the city or would receive a separation payout, as we'll be talking about next. So all times loaded at the beginning of the year.
Okay, thank you very much for that clarification.
Have you had to have many employees who have left pay back the city?
Best of my knowledge, Bridget, no, none that to the best of my knowledge, no.
Okay, thank you. All right, any other questions on ordinance 2053? Then I'd like to make a motion to put this on second, subsequent, third read. Mike?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Councilwoman King, I'm sorry to interrupt your motion and vote. I did have one last question.
Oh, sorry. Yep.
Have our unions and their representation signed off on this, or does it not affect? I just want to make sure they're on board.
It doesn't affect them.
It's only for administration.
This is just for administration to be right. It's to be
It's already in
consistent.
the union contracts.
Right.
All right, sorry. Thank you for the clarification and sorry for the interruption.
Oh, that's okay.
Okay, so I would like this second, subsequent, third read. Bill?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. And Greg?
Yes.
Okay. Next up is ordinance 2054, which is amending the section 143.30, payment upon separation. And I had a question about this. I don't know if this is for Director Signal or Mayor Cooney. Conversion payment, is that dollar to dollar? Or is it?
No, well, not for sick leave and certain, vacations, dollar for dollar, based on, you can only carry 2 weeks.
Okay.
With respect to the various contracts. And and I, because we have three different unions and three different accruals, I will let Director Single correct me if I'm wrong. I don't want to mislead anybody, but we're requesting this change because of and as Director Single, very rarely do we have to collect. He couldn't recall having to collect any money back when somebody leaves, but often we do have large payouts to some of our employees, and especially in the safety service departments, and and so this allows them the option to spread out the payments from a tax benefit standpoint. It doesn't, from the only really cost to the city is the administrative cost, and and extending it out. It's their money, they will receive it. And in this case, there's it allows, we set up a plan that allows policemen, police officers to defer some of their payout money to apply it towards their medical premiums. And this is this will be beneficial in that situation. And Director Single can be a little more specific. With,
But would that be part of their contract? Wouldn't that be a separate contract or no?
Well, their contract allows them to take the separation payment all at once, or they have some options. They can defer it. They can put it in deferred comp. They can take it all at once. They can have a lot of they can elect how much in taxes they want to have withheld. But in this situation, a number of a lot of, again, safety force members, they have a large premium they have to pay for their medical insurance, and this allows them to defer a separation payment tax-free into a plan that could then would be used to pay their medical premiums. And that's really the basis. Greg, correct me if I'm wrong. Really, that's the basis for this amendment.
That's correct, Mayor. It's exactly what you said.
I don't know if that cleared it up.
Yes.
We could, it's go ahead.
Go ahead, Mayor.
Well, it's a benefit to our employee. It gives them a little more discretion with respect to their separation and how they apply it. And so that's what the thought was here. Director Single.
Yeah, simply is that it's a nice benefit to the retirees, especially some of them that are receiving fairly large payouts, and that they can choose to receive their payout over a 3-year period. It helps with the taxes. It helps the city from a cash flow perspective. And then we also allowed the police department to come to us and asked if we would be willing to offer an HRA to eligible or retirees, in that, and in order to administer the HRA, this is needed to defer the monies, because when I don't want to get too far into the weeds with this, but they cannot receive a lump sum payment directly to themselves if they defer monies into an HRA. So by City Council approving this, it will allow future retirees that want to defer money into an HRA to pay their health care premiums after retirement. It will allow them to defer money into years 2 and possibly years 3, and defer that money into their deferred compensation so that they are in fact not receiving a direct payment from the city. If, I don't know if that makes sense. I don't want to get too far in the weeds from it, but basically if you put money in the HRA, you cannot receive a check from the city. All the money has to be deferred. And this will allow that to happen.
All right, that makes sense.
I know it's confusing. It's not. But that's the reason why we're asking. One of the reasons.
Okay. Does anyone else have questions on this? All right, then I'm gonna make a motion to put this on second, subsequent, third read. Mike,
Yes.
Brian,
Yes.
Bill,
Yes.
Maureen,
Yes.
Sarah,
Yes.
I'm gonna vote yes, and Greg?
Yes.
Okay, next up is ordinance 2055, which is authorizing contract for pool pack maintenance and associated equipment. So I have a question on this. In May, passed ordinance 2022, which allowed to get proposals for the HVAC. And that was for all buildings and structures owned by the city. And we were going to award it to the lowest and most responsible vendor for no more than $27,000. And then in September, we awarded it to Smith and Obie. So now we have this in front of us. It's for $30,000, and I'm a little confused.
These are the pool packs, Bridget. They're different.
So the HVAC does not include pool packs.
If I may, Chairwoman King, thank you. You're absolutely right and correct. We issued requests for proposals and we did receive, I believe 6. We ranked them, and Smith and Obie and Brewer and Garrett tied. So we had conducted interviews, and as a result of those interviews, we awarded the city maintenance to Smith and Obie. Now that work isn't limited to, but it includes greasing and oiling HVAC units, changing out belts, changing out filters, and things of that nature. As we spoke to these 2 firms and called their references, it became pretty clear to me, and you'll recall we didn't have the guidance from Director Kemp at the time. It still became clear to me that the pool packs were a very unique piece of equipment. As Council President Kilbane mentioned, they're somewhat separate from your normal HVAC unit. So it became important to me, especially learning about the history that you may already know, but that they're over 12 years old now. The anticipated lifespan is about 15 years, so we can anticipate end-of-life issues beginning to happen with these units. And if we want to get the remaining 3 to 5 years that we think we can, we really need to have some special attention. And so we felt that the additional costs in having unique and specialized technicians watching and offering the maintenance and making a little bit more in-depth attention to their care would save us a lot of money in the long run. These units most likely cost over $500,000 each, just for the unit, not including the crane and the labor to get them up and in place. So we decided to separate these pool pack units out of our regular preventative maintenance program. And in the course of what we learned and proposals that we asked them to submit, both Smith and Obie and Brewer and Garrett an additional second proposal for just these units. We looked them over. Director Kemp and I feel that Brewer and Garrett offers some specialized and unique services in that regard. They are currently managing the pool pack system at the city of North Olmsted. I was able to speak to their maintenance and facility manager, and he couldn't say nice enough things about what they've accomplished for their pool pack system. And I really believe that it's in the best interest for the safety, health, and welfare of the visitors to the pool, and for me as someone who's going to be working on these, that we move forward with asking for additional care for these units. Thank you.
Great, thank you so much. That was really helpful. Does anyone else have any questions on this? Okay, then I'm going to make a motion to put this on second and subsequent third read. Mike?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. And Greg?
Yes.
Okay. Then we have one last thing on the agenda. Resolution 2018, fiscal officer to advance taxes for 2021. My understanding, this is just kind of a standard operating procedure piece of legislation. Is that true, Mike? All right, does anyone have any questions about it or anything?
Maintenance, Bridget.
What's that?
Yeah, I believe you're right. Just maintenance, yeah.
Okay. All right, well, if no one has any questions, I'm going to make a motion, put this on second, subsequent, third read as well. Mike?
Yes.
Brian?
Yes.
Bill?
Yes.
Maureen?
Yes.
Sarah?
Yes.
I'm going to vote yes. And Greg?
Yes.
All right. So the Finance Committee will conclude at 8:58 p.m. Woohoo!
Thanks, Bridget. Great job.
Thank you.
Okay, we'll now have boards and commission reports. Brian?
Nothing tonight. Thanks.
Thank you. William?
Thanks, Council President. The Board of Control met this evening. And of course, the P&D Commission that was scheduled for last Wednesday was canceled per the applicant's request. Thank you.
Thank you. Maureen?
Nothing to report. Thank you.
Sarah?
Thank you, Council President. So just wanted to report that the Fairview Park City Schools are once again moving to remote learning. They are on Thanksgiving break this week, and when they return next week, they will be remote through what has been determined as the end of Christmas break. So look for a lot of frazzled parents and frazzled teachers and frazzled administrators, but we're all doing the best we can here. And I appreciate the district's attempts to keep us all safe and keep our kids safe as well. They have announced that sporting events will continue at this time, but spectators will not be welcome due to the COVID-19 surge. So if you were planning on heading to a sporting event, it's not going to work out well for you. But yeah, the school is doing a great job pivoting this year, just about every chance they get. So keep an eye out for remote schools. And as far as I'm aware, I don't have a report from the other schools in the city, but I believe they are all still staying in school. So I don't know if anybody can confirm that. Okay. That's all I had.
Thanks for the report, Sarah. Bridget?
Report.
Greg?
Yeah, the CRA met on the 17th. It was a hybrid meeting. Some people were in person, some people were over Zoom. Went over all the tax abatement program for any of the properties. Last year, there were 260 inspections on the abated properties. 2019 had $2.9 million of permit valued applications. $14 million total in estimated construction cost. There were 5 properties that came off the list this year, and there's going to be to where their property taxes are going to begin to be realized. And there's going to be 20 properties coming off next year. So starting after those taxes begin to be realized, there will be a large increase in the property tax revenue. And there's a lot of those on there, such as the Thomas Lane. There's a couple, let's see, Thomas Lane and the schools and a couple other big ones. And then as far as new applications coming on, it has slowed a little bit since the pandemic, which probably doesn't surprise anybody, but it was a good meeting. And that's my report. Thank you.
Thank you for the report. Okay, roundtable. Brian, do you have anything?
Not tonight, thanks.
Bill?
Nothing, Mike.
Maureen?
Yes, Mike, thank you. I had a new resident of Fairview reach out to me and asked if council would consider reviewing the ordinance that does not allow for chickens in our yards. She apparently would like to have chickens in her yard. I'd asked Liz the procedure, to go about bringing this up. She recommended either the resident write the local government chair or to bring it up at roundtable. Does anyone see any merit in bringing this issue into a committee? I personally am against chickens in the yard, but as it stands.
You can probably ask, Bill probably remembers, we have discussed this in the past, and, livestock, goats, chickens.
Right.
It was shot down then, so.
Okay, so is that pretty much the consensus then? It's not worth bringing into committee because it recently was reviewed and shot down?
Yeah.
Okay. All right, at least I have something to share with her. Thank you. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. Sarah?
I have nothing this evening. Thank you.
Thank you. Bridget?
Nothing, thank you.
Thanks. Greg?
Yeah, so I had a meeting last week with Kevin Kennedy, the mayor of North Homestead, to discuss sewer control, stormwater management. And we had a very long discussion without getting into the details, but he did extend an invitation for anyone who wants to view the North Homestead water treatment plant. So if you are interested in getting a tour of that, let me know. He asked me to ask everyone on council and in the administration if they're interested in the tour. And then once we know, who would be interested, we can set up a date. So reach out to me if you have any interest in that. And that's all I have. Thank you.
Thank you. Liz, do you have anything?
Nope, I'm good.
Okay. So the chair will now entertain a motion to move into executive session for the purposes of preparing for, conducting, reviewing negotiations or bargaining sessions with public employees concerning their compensation or other terms and conditions of their employment.
So move.
Have a second?
Second.
Is there any discussion? Hearing none, will the clerk please call the roll on the motion to move into executive session?
Mr. Simmerly,
Yes.
Mr. Minute,
Yes.
Mrs. Adler,
Yes.
Mr. Cobain,
Yes.
Mrs. Waring,
Yes.
Mrs. King,
Yes.
Mr. Berger.
Yes.
Okay, council is now in executive session. The clerk sent everybody links. So good luck finding your way there.